5 questions with me and Seaton. I'll go first. If you could play an actor in any movie that you've seen, who would it be?
Oh, so tough that you could take so many different routes here. I don't know if I wanted to be like a superhero Marvel or if I wanted to be just kind of like actually, you know what? I'm going with Jason Bourne. Jason Bourne. I mean,
It's a good answer.
you can't go wrong with the Bournes.
Dang, well, you got a lot of time on your hands because you'll be doing a lot of movies. But I like that answer. Okay, one piece of advice you would give yourself, your 20-year-old self when you were opening up a business. What's one piece of advice that you would give yourself now before you opened up your gym?
I don't want this to be overly cliche. I've been asked this by people quite younger than me that want to kind of get into the entrepreneurship world. I think the number one thing I'd tell them is, and what I would 100% have told myself is it's going to be okay. I think that was, because, you fear the unknown to some extent. You have no clue what's about to hit your lap because you've never even, managed or, my experience lacked and all this stuff. And so the way I operate is I'm thinking a million miles a minute. So it's just knowing that it was going to be okay, and took some advice from my Greg and Nantucket saying nothing's overly hard in this world, just sit down and learn it. So doing that and telling myself, just knowing that it's going to be all right, you're going to see it through and you're going to work hard and you're going to get it, you're going to get it done for sure.
That's good. What's a quote you're using a lot these days? It can be personally, it could be something like you're trying to do with your team, or it could be a quote that you saw over the last couple of months that you're using personally, that like when the days get tough, you just kind of remind yourself of this quote, or it's something maybe with your staff that you've really wanted them to pay attention to. But what's one quote that you find yourself using now more often than any other?
Yeah, this is good because I always start my year with some type of phrase or some type of, what am I going to always reflect back to in the year, at hand and going forward, more or less New Year's resolutions as far as, this is what I kind of want to, reflect on every time something, comes into play that might give me a little adversity or some bumps in the road. But my favorite is the Babe Ruth. It's hard to beat a person that never gives up. It really is, because no matter what, it's really hard to beat being present. I think that goes the longest in everything. Don't run from any problems. Don't make sure you're hitting them head on. Don't fold. It's very hard to beat a person that never gives up. So show up every single day. Presence cures a lot.
I like it. More personal. Mountain or beach?
Oh, mountain. I'm big on space. I'm big on, makes me feel freedom and trails and just being I'm claustrophobic too, so I just love space. So mountain scenery, beautiful.
That's good. Last question for me. What are some intangible things that aren't on paper that you look for in the interview process? Someone sitting across from you. I'm trying to paint the picture for you. Yeah. Obviously, they've got a great resume. There's things on paper that makes them look good. But what are things that you may look for when that person comes in? It could be something as where they park in the parking lot. It could be there's a lot of things that I look for. It's kind of a unique question. But is there one thing that, or maybe it's a pet peeve. Maybe it's something that that they do that you're like, I'm not a big fan of that. But I like to keep this positive. So what's one thing that you look for on a positive note that they may not be expecting maybe?
I mean, there's obviously tons of things that I'm looking for as far as body language.
Just hit one.
I would say body language, more importantly, is the comfortability. If you see somebody that is confident and you never want to hire an unmotivated person and try to motivate them. So I really look into the confidence, the presence of the charisma, you want the go-getter, right? You want the motivated person. So body language for me is everything. If you see them fidgeting a lot or being real nervous, then that means if anything happens with a client or something like that, then they almost revolt back to those tendencies. If they're nervous with me, they could be nervous with the situation they could have at the front desk. So confidence is my big thing for sure.
Love it, man. I'm done.
Yep. All right. We'll start with not too deep, but I think if the audience doesn't know, Spence has his second child on the way, due here in a few weeks. So I guess what's the biggest difference you think is going to be the difference between one child and having a second child? What's going to be the biggest change in you and Shelby's lives?
Well, I think I'll have to play more a bigger role. I think because now we're playing man-to-man defense. And yeah. I think your first child, it's kind of primal, right? Like I think the mom or the woman really is just very nurturing and very close with that first child. And I think I've been given a lot of freedom with our first child because Shelby has really wanted to be the best mom she possibly can be. And I understand just the science behind it all and how primal that is. And so she's just wanted to be a really good caretaker. And I think now with two, I am going to have to play a bigger role inside of parenting. And I can't tell you what that looks like, but I think that's going to be the biggest change is, she can't raise two children by herself. This one-on-one thing works well, especially early on, because I think that's what she wants. But I think with two, I definitely have to jump back into and grow up even more, I think. Mm-hmm. So, we could go a mile deep on that question, but I think for me, that's what I think I'm kind of preparing myself for is being able to take Sloan places while she's with Shade or vice versa.
Nice. All right. What is one word that you could take from your athletic career in the sports world that you can bring into the business world? What's one thing that you think's like one word sports taught you or sports brought into your of who you are that has made you better in the workforce?
This is easy for me. Grit. I think sports and business, you got to be gritty. Like I said, I can go a mile deep in that, but I think there's just and Jesse Itzler talks about this all the time. It's just grit. Business and sports, the parallel is grit. You got to be grimy. You got to be able to get in the trenches. You got to be able to work your tail off when no one else is willing to, and you got to be gritty. You can't let any door go unopened. You kind of have to slide through some cracks that maybe some doors you're not supposed to go into. You just got to be gritty, and I think that's the biggest. That's one word that would be the biggest transition that helped me the most in business. Was I was for lack of a better word, I was just a small little kid playing in a game of basketball that was felt like giants around me. Man, I had to figure out ways to get things done. Because I didn't have the God-given, formula to be successful, DNA. And I think that's business.
Yep, for sure. All right, this is tricky because I'm pretty aware of how you go about your life. But one thing that you indulge in, and if you don't indulge in anything, what would it be? Because I know you live a pretty balanced life. But if there was something that you indulge in that's hard for you to give up. Something along those lines.
Yeah, two things. Number one is the obvious one. I think your phone is an indulgence. I think, us business owners can give ourselves the excuse that we need to be on it, that there's customers out there that we want to connect with, that there's marketing and the PR side of things. Mm-hmm. We can give our excuse all day, but I think that's definitely an overindulgence, and I think we give ourselves that excuse far too often. But also, my biggest overindulgence, I guess, from a health perspective, would have to be alcohol. It's not that I'm not a guy that's going to drink to excess often, but it is one of those things that part of my industry and part of who I am is I want everyone to have a good time. And, sometimes I find myself in the middle of it rather than, kind of pulling back on that. So I think those are my two like overindulgences. I mean, I don't think I have necessarily a problem with either. I just think that more often than not, those are the two spaces where I feel like occupies time when I feel like there's probably a healthier alternative for me.
All right. And the next question, for those that don't know, Spence is training for an Ironman, which is going to be sweet, major accomplishment on the horizon. But I guess from fitness industry standpoint, as far as your training goes, how do you feel your body reacting? How do you feel your body holding up as you go through some vigorous training?
I think this is totally different than anything I've ever done. I think when you look at like half marathons and marathons, for me, it's a lot of mental toughness. I think when you put yourself through something like this, you can't just be mental tough. I think you have to be physically strong as well. I think your mental toughness can take you pretty darn far, and obviously you can even finish the race just on your mental toughness alone. But what is that doing to your body after the fact? I learned that at the Ultra. So I think the biggest transition with the Ironman is obviously not just going, I'm going to show up and do this thing, because I can do that, and I'm mentally pretty freaking tough when it comes to being competitive and being in a competitive environment, to where I'm at least going to finish. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to quit. But what's that going to do to my body afterwards? And what are the repercussions of that? Just being mentally tough, it could mean that I do something to my body that I can never recover from. So I know going after something like an Ironman, you can't just be mentally tough. You have to be physically, and that's where my headspace is really right now.
That's awesome. It's a good approach. All right, last question. Kind of got this from the audience a little bit. They wanted me to bring in some brother rivalry. So, who do you think's got the better jumper?
Gosh, man. I mean, I think this is tough, man, because I mean, obviously, I'm going to say me, but I don't want to go without it being said that your jumper is also pretty pure. So I mean, I'm gonna say me, but I'm also going to say that you're definitely sneaky, and that you have some games where you can light it up as well. So I'm not. I would say maybe I don't know. I mean, I think obviously I've just shot the basketball probably a lot more than you, and so that gives me the leg up. But I'm also going to say it's closer than what people might think.
Well, you got a mid-range, so I got to give it to you. That's the problem.
But it's closer than what people would think. But my competitive nature and just the fact that I've shot that dang thing more times than I can ever count, I would have to give myself the leg up. But it's definitely closer than one might think. I would say that.
That's great. That's great.
All right, we're done. Peace. See you next week. Boom, baby. Right on.